thanks to the Mormon Church LDS for allowing me to use their video. My name is Roy Short, and I am a genealogist, and I'm going to spend the next 40 so minutes talking about my favorite topic. And it's going to be kind of like drinking out of a fire hose because we only have a short time, as I said, but let's just cover the highlights. And we have questions, hold them till the end, and I'll be happy to deal with them. All right, presentation outline such that we're going to talk about who I am and why I'm here, and then we have, where do you begin with the process of doing your genealogy and going back in time. We're going to talk about how you get the information organized that you discover. We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing your relatives, which is a lot of fun. We're going to talk about the types of records that are going to become important to you if you decide to embark on this. We're going to talk about where to search for those records. And then we're going to touch on DNA, which of course is very popular right now. And I'll talk about what you can expect and what you can't expect from DNA. Then we're going to talk about going about creating your family tree and beginning to get some perspective on how your line looks. I have about 30 years experience in researching and doing work in genealogy. Most of the time I spent doing my own family tree, my wife's family tree. And then recently, in the last year or two, branched off into doing consulting and doing seminars and lectures and so on. What got me started really is that when I was doing my own tree, I discovered that I had some ancestors who fought in the Revolutionary War. I didn't have much proof of that, but I did have the connections made. And so I contacted the the Sons of the American Revolution, which is the counterpart of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and said, how do I go about becoming certified for this? And they told me what a lengthy process it is. So I won't bore you with the details, but after a year or so, I did get accepted. I had my Revolutionary War descendant identified and cataloged, and then I found 17 more, which I had not bothered to get certified because once you get one, you don't really need them all, and it takes a long time. So my family's been here a long time. So that stimulated me then to go and see what else is out there, and I discovered what I thought was a Mayflower ancestor, which in genealogy terms is sort of the Holy Grail society. If you can prove that you're descended from a passenger on the Mayflower, well, that's quite a big deal in our field. So again, I contacted them, we went through a negotiation process. I submitted them my information, they told me what they needed, which was a considerable amount. And it took 3 years to finally establish that I was indeed the descendant of John Howland. But I got it, and I am now in that society. The Jamestown Society is one I'm working on now. Jamestown, as mostly of you know, was established even before Plymouth Rock. It was established in 1607. The society itself doesn't appear to be as prestigious as Mayflower for a lot of reasons, but it is older and it is very difficult to get in. I'm working on that one. I belong to just about every genealogical association that is in my area and all the national ones. I run a genealogy club in my hometown, and we have about 120 people or so in that club. It's a lot of fun. I am a lecturer. I do a lot of local lectures and as well as cruise ship lectures, and then I'm also a consultant for hire. So I have my hands in a lot of pots. Now let's talk about why you want to study genealogy. Most people do it to trace their lineage, to try to find out exactly from where their ancestors came and what nationality they might be. They like to learn about their family history, who out there was in the wars that we talked about, and who might have been a revolutionary patriot, who might have been a Civil War combatant, who might have been a deserter, who might have been anything. So it's a lot of fun. You'll learn your ethnicity. As I mentioned last night, I think that most of us have a misunderstanding of what our actual ethnicity is. I know I did, and every time I spoke to some friends and we did some research on their ethnicity and their nationality. We found out they really weren't who they thought they were. My parents always told me I was Irish and German, and they never mentioned anything else. When I did my DNA, I found out I was a third Scandinavian, and I had all kinds of other stuff in my blood. So I was quite surprised to learn that, but I was happy to learn that. People try to learn what their medical history is doing genealogy for lots of reasons. Unfortunately, genealogy is not the best tool to use for obtaining medical history. Even the DNA tests that we use in genealogy aren't suitable to detect medical histories, but there are DNA tests that do. Also, we want to confirm and disprove folklore. You know, we all grew up with a lot of stories from our parents and our aunts and our brothers and sisters about things that happened in our ancestors' lives. Probably most of them are not true. And when you get into it and really start finding out who they were and find the documents and the wills and the Bibles and all the stuff that you're going to discover, you'll decide that, well, you know, maybe they weren't quite what everybody said they were. Might want to study genealogy, start a new career. I certainly don't really want to start a new career. I do this as a hobby. I am retired, but I do love it. Okay, so how do you begin? Once you decide you want to start, how do you start? The first thing you should do, and this is true of almost everything in life, unfortunately, is you got to make a plan. You got to figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. Do I want to establish that I do have a Revolutionary War patriot? Do I want to decide or discover that my parents really did come from Poland or Czechoslovakia or South America or China? Find out what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. And that's very important, because once you get out there on the internet and start browsing around all these various sites and trying to decide you know, what records are pertinent to you or not, you're going to get distracted in all kinds of directions. And if you don't stay focused, you can end up spending days, weeks, months chasing down ancestors that really aren't part of what you originally staked out to do. I always start with myself and then work backwards. Obviously, you know more about yourself than you do anybody else, so catalog that information, start building your family tree by putting in everything you know about yourself. And then you go back one generation at a time until you hit a wall. You want to go around the house, start collecting your family documents, get on the phone, talk to your relatives, your brothers and parents if they're still around, and say, what do you have in the way of documentation? Do you have birth certificates? Do you have immigration records? Do you have wills? Do you have deeds? And do you have any item the records in your family? Bibles are important. That might help you document the dates and locations of your ancestors. That's what you're trying to do. Remember, you're not just going to want to just find out where the people are. You want to be able to prove it. You want to have confidence that what you're finding is really true. Interviewing relatives. We're going to talk about that on the next slide, and we also have a whole day's presentation, whole hour presentation on how to interview relatives, because I really think that's an important one. And then you got to start a tree. And again, you start a tree to primarily help yourself get organized and get perspective on where the various branches lead. There are two little records, and I don't want to bore you with workmanship, but there are two charts and records that you should become familiar with. The first one is the family group record, and this documents your core family. So it would be you, your wife, your children, both adopted and natural, and just you basically outline everything you know about them. And if you do this in writing first, it makes it subsequent entry into the family tree a lot easier. The second one is the pedigree chart, which is one you're probably familiar with. And this is the one that displays 4, 5, 6 generations of your family and your spouse's family. And once you start filling this out and putting the dates and locations in, it'll stimulate you to learn more, because you're going to run out of gas and you're not going to know all the answers. So as I said, part of the planning process is you fill out these charts, And you can guess at first. If you don't know the answer, you put about 1865 or about, somewhere in Pennsylvania or whatever you think you know. Go ahead and put it in there, because when we get to the search engines portions of this, it'll be very forgiving and it'll help you understand how to find these things. As I mentioned, when I identify your goals, you should have a short-term and a long-term goal. The long-term goal might be to find that patriot. The short-term goal, though, is maybe you just want to find out who your great-grandfather was. And again, if you know those goals and you start finding yourself off in space looking at things that don't pertain to these goals, slap yourself and come on back. Don't spend a lot of money on the internet. A lot of these internet sites, you go out and the first thing they want you to do is subscribe to their services, get on a monthly plan, annual plan. I wouldn't spend a nickel at first until you're really sure you want to do this, because most of the data they're trying to sell you is available for free anyway. Start by interviewing your relatives. Okay, let's just talk about that.